One Alterus project. It's on the top of the Easy Park Parkade on Pender and Richards. So if you park there when you're heading downtown, some of you might even park there tonight. It's not actually that far from here. It might have been your great spot. They are growing vegetables over your head. In a city like Vancouver, there may be things growing above you in all sorts of ways, but this is actually stuff that you can eat, and it's legal, and I am delighted to present to you Christopher Ng of Alterus.
Thank you. Thanks, Alana. Abundance, it's an interesting word. I think it's manufactured in terms of food. We get mangoes up here in the middle of winter, coconut water from Thailand. If you ask somebody in Saudi or in Qatar or up in the Yukon, you're not going to hear the same thing, that there's an abundance of food. So what we're trying to do here is create that abundance locally. And we feel that there is a way to grow leafy greens, which is the sector we're in, locally, sustainably, and very nutritiously. We have a real paradigm shifting technology. I think you saw some of it on the video. I'd like to just quickly explain to you what it is that we're really doing and how it's going to impact the planet. So we really think that this is a sustainable way of creating local food and very nutritiously. It's a series of racks that are holding 24 hydroponic trays on each of the racks, and there's 120 of these racks on what we call a base case system of verticrop. Verticrop is really a high density vertical farming system and aimed for an urban environment, so to grow food where people are consuming it. It uses 90% less water than field farming. So that's huge. That's absolutely huge. If you see the farms out in the field, Northern California, Central California, all that sprinkling that's going on it's all getting wasted into the groundwater. And not only that, the pollution that goes along with it, with the fertilizers, the herbicides, and the pesticides that have to be used in an environment like that, is all getting washed into the water table. Scientists have said in the next 30 to 35 years, we're not going to be able to farm in Central Valley, California anymore because the pollution in the groundwater is starting to work its way up, and that's just going to be barren land. Using less land, on 4,000 square feet above this rooftop today, we can grow 150 to 200,000 pounds of leafy greens a year on 4,000 square feet. That's high density. That's high productivity. No herbicides and pesticides. We use all biological means to combat pests. We use no herbicides, so less pollution and residue-free food. Food safety, issues of salmonella, E. coli, all of these things out in the field are very controlled in our environment. So we're growing inside of a greenhouse or a fully enclosed warehouse environment where it's insulated. So you can see from that we can have a warehouse scenario up in the Yukon growing leafy greens, fresh, nutritious, all year round. Food security, like I said earlier, places like Saudi, they depend on other countries to provide the food that they have. In fact, it's heavily subsidized by the government, and we can combat that. The carbon footprint of our farm right now, as it stands, the single base case of 4,000 square feet, is less than half of transporting the same lettuces and leafy greens from California, just the transportation alone. Better tasting food, of course, because it's fresh, it's grown in the best environment possible, it's better for you, it has a longer shelf life. What inspired me to join the business after 30 years of retailing? Well, gosh, I tell you, if it wasn't for my kids and the future generations, and learning what I did at Lululemon about elevating the world from mediocrity to greatness, this was my chance to get out. I was quite comfortable. I could have been at Lululemon today and be some big executive traveling on jets. But I chose to do this because my kids understood what it meant. And they resonated with me that they understood what food means today. And also that when they grow up and they have kids, and we're 9 billion people in 2050, and in fact the scientists are saying now it's going to be earlier than 2050, how are we going to grow this amount of food in our farmlands? It's not possible. We would need the entire size of Brazil added to the planet to grow food in the amounts that we need. So as I said on the video, in the next 37 years, we have to grow the same amount of food that we've grown in the last 8,000 to meet the demands of what the population is going to need. So it wasn't hard for me to get inspired to say, wow, I can make a change. I can leave a legacy for my kids and future generations in this paradigm-shifting way of growing food. What was interesting was when I joined Alterus, it was a small company, a startup really. In fact, one that had a bit of a checkered past in different ventures. And so there were a lot of legacy issues. And not only was I running a company now in its entirety about its operations, but it also was a public company, so it had a public entity or a public face that I had to manage. And then on top of that, the legacy issues that were sort of in the closet, let's say. So it was very interesting. We've made some really, really good groundbreaking advances in our business. We've managed to open our first commercial demonstration here on Richard Street. As Alana said earlier, we've had a prototype running in England for the last 4 years in a sustainable zoo in the southwest of England. It's been working fantastically. We've done a lot of research around that. A lot of our data supporting our build out here was obtained from the Paignton Zoo. And we currently have a research facility there that is fully enclosed, so no natural sunlight, growing with artificial lighting only. Basil and spinach, and we're doing trials for a large frozen food company in the UK, Europe. You might have heard of them, Bird's Eye Igloo. We'll be meeting with them in another week's time to discuss how to scale up what they've seen at the zoo in our research facility, and how to really grow something like basil or spinach, which is really problematic for them to go through about 70,000 tons of spinach a year in their frozen food preparation. And they have to rely on everything from weather to the supply chain continuity, the volatility of pricing, the operational demands of having a crop come in that magnitude in a period of 3 months. They have to work 3 shifts, 24/7. They freeze all this stuff, and then they have to use energy to keep it all frozen in freezers until they sell their inventory down. So very, very inefficient model. With verticrop systems, they can have constant output of these greens and meet demands as they need it. So what are some of the things that I would not do? Again, if I had the chance with Alterus, was it wouldn't be a public company. It's really, really difficult to run a public company with the size that we are and being a startup, because there's a lot of arduous work and filings and cost involved in running a public company. And as much as rooftop greenhouses and rooftop farms are very front and center right now for a lot of different organizations, I think it's a little bit novel. I would not put another greenhouse on top of a rooftop because the logistics is very, very difficult to get your inputs and getting your outputs off the roof.
Having trouble getting trucks on the roof.
Yeah. Getting trucks on the roof with a 6'6" clearance.
There we go.
They're little squatty trucks, yeah. But that's essentially what we're doing. I think my time's up. And I'll look forward to your questions later.